Well, if anybody thought President Trump was a Russian agent, they can absolutely put that to rest by now. Let's just hope that he doesn't drive us into World War III, proving that he's not a Russian agent. So on Tuesday, there was a chemical attack in Syria, and the media, the neocons, the Democrats, I mean, all came out and blamed Assad. They said that it was Assad that did this attack, this chemical attack on his own people. Now, the Obama administration's stance was regime change. They were trying to oust Assad. They were funding quote unquote moderate rebels that actually split off, joined ISIS, helped ISIS, worked with ISIS. So literally, we were funding ISIS, and people like General Flynn and Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer have come out and blown the whistle on all of this stuff. The attack in 2013, the Syrian attack, the chemical attack, that this attack on Tuesday mirrors almost identically in many ways. The attack in 2013 was Obama's classic red line. And it turns out that even according to people from the UN that were part of the investigations, that it was probably the rebels that actually did that attack. There was even YouTube videos of them bragging about it, flying around their little ISIS flags. So this attack happens. The Trump administration stance previous to this was that they were not going to push for regime change in Syria. That's a good thing for Assad. They are talking about working with Russia and Syria to take out ISIS. That is a good thing for Assad. Again, we are, America and other NATO countries are funding the moderate rebels which work with and defect to ISIS time and time again. The majority of them, in fact, wind up becoming ISIS, basically, or Al-Qaeda, pretty much the same thing. So we're funding these people. And, you know, the Trump administration was talking about working with Syria to actually take out ISIS. And it is clear, absolutely clear, that this attack was a false flag. I mean, it is a classic false flag operation. It is ridiculous. You've got the fingerprints of George Soros all over it. You've got, you know, pro-rebel media organizations actually talking about the attack the day before it even happens. You had all these people getting all these gas masks and basically like hazmat suits and all this other stuff before the attack happened, and there is no reason Assad would do this. It makes zero sense. This is, I mean, this is literally like winning the lottery and then throwing the ticket away. It makes zero sense. And Ron Paul, former Congressman Ron Paul, has come out and said that is almost certainly a false flag. And then Trump actually comes out and condemns this event, blames Assad, and then it actually wound up escalating even more from there. So this is from the Wall Street Journal. U.S. launches cruise missiles at Syrian airbase in response to chemical attack. The U.S. military launched nearly 60 Tomahawk cruise missiles against the Syrian airbase Friday, responding to mounting calls for a display of force in the wake of this week's suspected chemical weapons attack in Syria. The strikes represented the first time a U.S. military operation deliberately targeted the regime of President Bashar al-Assad, and came a day after U.S. President Donald Trump said the chemical attack in Idlib province on Tuesday had changed his thinking on Syria and Mr. Assad speaking inside his Mar-a-Lago resort. President Trump said he ordered targeted missile strikes at a Syrian airfield as a response to the, quote, barbaric chemical weapons attack. The Assad regime, Mr. Trump said, choked out the lives of helpless people in Syria. It is in the vital national security interest of the United States to prevent and deter the spread and use of deadly chemical weapons, Mr. Trump said. There can be no dispute that Syria used banned chemical weapons. And it's important that he says banned chemical weapons because in 2013, Syria basically got rid of all of their chemical weapons because of that event in 2013. And even the UN admitted that they got rid of it all. There is very little chance that they would have even had the sarin gas that they said was used on the civilians. Now the rebels, that's another story. It has been proven time and time again that they have used chemical attacks, and that they in fact probably have chemical weapons to this day. An article by Seymour Hersh exposed how Hillary Clinton was funneling weapons through from Libya through Turkey to these groups. So, I mean, it is a totally absurd situation. There's no way that Assad did this deliberately. There's no way that he would have done this attack. It's just, there is a 0% chance. So to see Trump not only condemn it, and well, obviously you condemn the attack, it's a horrible thing, but to come out and blame the Assad regime with no evidence. There hasn't been any investigation. Nothing like that has been done. The only people that are saying that it was the Assad regime are officials in the government, and we just have to take their word for that. So this is a very serious situation, and I'm going to get into it a little bit more. But bottom line, this is the wrong move for Trump to do. This is a big mistake. The U.S. strikes targeted the Sahara airfields near Homs, Syria, and were meant to cripple the base's aircraft shelters, ammunition bunkers, and air defense and radar systems, officials said. The strikes began at about 4:40 a.m. Friday in Syria and only lasted approximately 5 minutes. A Syrian official said the strikes killed 5 people, including 3 members of the military, and caused significant damage. The base was directly tied to the April 4th attack at a civilian hospital, according, again, to the U.S. military. We just have to take their word on it. Russia, which had troops on the targeted airbase, was warned in advance of the U.S. strike, and the military took pains to target only parts of the base where the Russians weren't located, a military official said. Quote, there are Russians at the base, and we took extraordinary precautions to not target the area where the Russians are, Pentagon spokesman Captain Jeff Davis said at a briefing late Tuesday. Well, what happens if you make a mistake? What happens if they are there? I mean, this is a very dangerous situation. It seems like this was basically a snap judgment on Trump's side. Not good. Not good at all. Russia on Friday criticized the strikes and suspended a U.S.-Russian agreement on coordinating air operations over Syria. Russian President Vladimir Putin considers the actions an aggression against the sovereign state and a violation of international law, his spokesman said. And of course, I mean, this is going to ratchet up tensions with Russia, which are already, according to experts and analysts, at Cold War, beyond Cold War levels in some ways. So, very dangerous situation, and to see Trump jump on this event, blame the Assad regime, and then in a snap judgment call decision, actually attack, a Syrian airbase, the base that they say that this chemical attack actually came from. So, there's been no investigation. No one knows what actually happened. And of course, the neocons, which have been getting stacked in the Trump administration. You got people like General McMaster, H.R. McMaster, the guy who replaced General Flynn, who was the former national security advisor, the guy who came out and exposed how the Obama administration was knowingly funding ISIS in, Libya and Syria and other places. So he gets kicked out. This McMaster guy comes in, who's a total, war hawk. He's, a neocon, basically. He's some guy who, pushes for, escalation geopolitically towards Russia, militarily. And, this is the guy who is now the national security advisor. And then one of the main rules this guy had to become the national security advisor was that he gets to reorganize the National Security Council basically how he wants. And Trump finally agreed to that. And then, of course, Steve Bannon gets kicked out, which, hey, I don't really know why the guy was in there in the first place. It didn't really seem to make a whole lot of sense. He didn't have a whole lot of military background. But I can guarantee that he was probably one of the only voices in that whole table of military neocons in the National Security Council at this point that was actually not advocating for this kind of an attack on Syria. So now he's out. So now the only people that effectively have Donald Trump's ear on these kind of geopolitical events are people like McMaster, who again pushes for military escalation towards Russia. And it's a very dangerous situation. And now an article from the Daily Mail illustrates what the Russian response, at least at this point, is. Russian battleship is positioned between U.S. warships and runway hit by Trump airstrike. Vladimir Putin has today diverted a warship to protect the Syrian coast and vowed to bolster Bashar al-Assad's missile defense against further U.S. strikes. As fears grew, the crisis could topple into a war between Russia and the West. The Russian president has immediately sent his Admiral Grigorovich frigate, probably pronounced that wrong, armed with cruise missiles and a self-defense system from the Black Sea to a dock in Syria later. It will pass through the East Mediterranean waters, where the USS Ross and USS Porter fired the 59 Tomahawk missiles that pounded Assad's al-Sharat military airfield near Horns in the early hours of Friday. Putin today called it an illegal act of aggression and also ripped up an agreement to avoid mid-air clashes between Russia and U.S. fighter jets over Syria. In the continuing fight to back Russian or Syrian planes, also bombed the town of Khan Shaykhun, the scene of Tuesday's horrific chemical gas attack where 80 died, witnesses in the rebel-held area claimed. Yeah, again, witnesses in the rebel-held area claimed. Of course they would. The U.S. was also branded a partner of ISIS by al-Assad's spokesman, calling the missile strikes reckless and irresponsible, and accused Trump of naively falling for a false propaganda campaign about the Idlib sarin massacre, which, look, again, for the millionth time, I don't think Assad is a good guy, but that doesn't mean that it's okay to have an event staged, or an event that we don't know what really happened, instantly blame him, and then escalate this situation, more importantly with Russia. Look, I think that what needs to happen is we need to work with Russia to get Assad out, not try to bomb the crap out of Syria, hope that Russia just backs down, and then try to overthrow Assad, Libya style. I mean, how did that work out? So this is just getting absolutely insane. Today, world leaders praised the U.S. strikes and urged Putin to hold urgent talks with Trump to prevent the Syria crisis escalating into a wider world conflict. Viktor Ozerov, head of the Defense Committee in the Russian Federation Council, told state news agency RIA that the U.S. strikes may undermine the efforts in the fights against terrorism and Syria. Nah, you think? Russia will demand an urgent UN Security Council meeting after the U.S. airstrike on Syrian aviation base. This is an act of aggression against a UN member. Russia's foreign minister says no Russian serviceman has been hurt in the bombing raid. Its Security Council said it regretted the harm done to relations between Washington and Moscow. A Pentagon official told DailyMail.com that the president is dead set against letting Assad labor under the illusion that the Syrian army can murder innocent people with impunity. And so basically what happened here is, Trump criticized Obama's red line, saying, well, I mean, first of all, he said that we should have never been involved in that conflict in the first place. We should never have been in Syria. There should have never been a red line. He was against the war in Iraq, contrary to, a lot of people who just don't want to actually believe reality. And he was against, stirring up all these conflicts and basically helping ISIS to spread all around the world. So he said that, when you did that red line, then to not the red line, you have this red line, the red line gets crossed supposedly. Again, I think it was a false flag event again by the rebels, just like this time. But the point is, the red line didn't get crossed, and Trump criticized Obama for that. So now, of course, this event happens, and Trump has all these neocon, generals and advisors around him saying, how evil and terrible and bad Assad is, and saying that this was, their intelligence says that it was guaranteed that it was Assad's regime that did this, and they say that they're sure that it was Assad's regime that did this. Trump sees all these pictures of all these, little kids and all this, horrible stuff that happened because of this event. And, he wants to look like a strong leader or whatever. Plus, you got all this Russian BS being stirred up. So he doesn't want to seem like he's weak on Russia. And basically it led to a snap judgment where he then fired a bunch of missiles at Syria. This is a very dangerous situation. This is something that, could lead to a much broader conflict. This could lead to an actual conflict with Russia. Not a Cold War, a hot war. And that's something we really need to try to avoid. So, it's just absolutely insane. And then, you've got the people from, all these people that are just behind this and supporting this and saying that, it's a good thing that he did this. So this is a very sketchy situation, if you will. And just to illustrate the fact that you've got all these people, that are telling Trump that he's getting a lot of bad advice, basically. And you got all these people, these neocons, telling Trump that doing this is the right way to go. And it is not. It is not the right decision at all. So from the Weekly Standard, Trump National Security Team all agreed on Syria strike. Well, would you look at that? On Wednesday afternoon, the National Security Council convened in the White House with President Donald Trump in the chair to discuss how the United States would respond to Bashar al-Assad. And again, this is the National Security Council, which Steve Bannon, hate him or love him, just got kicked out of. And I guarantee he would have been one of the lone voice, apparently, opposing this. So that's what's going on. You got all these people who, are not neocons, who do not want to, have boots on the ground in Syria, who do not want to increase our military conflict with Syria and ultimately with Russia, because that's what that leads to. And they're pushing out all the people who are against that. And so all you've got is this one resounding, voice from the Security Council saying, attack Syria. Totally insane. The Pentagon's plan, delivered by Defense Secretary and former Central Command Commander James Mattis at Wednesday's NSC meeting, a hellfire of Tomahawk missiles on the airfield where Assad's regime had launched the attack. If there was dissent among any on Trump's national security team, nobody spoke up. Everybody agreed that this was the option that they liked, said an administration official with knowledge of the meeting. So on Thursday morning, a number of national security officials went to work at the White House believing the strike was imminent, but only a small number of principals, President Trump, Mattis, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, and National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, among them, had knowledge the strike would happen Thursday night. Quote, Russian forces were notified in advance of the strike using the established deconfliction line, said the Pentagon in its statement. U.S. military planners took precautions to minimize risk on Russian or Syrian personnel located at the airfield. Tillerson and McMaster told reporters Thursday night the Russian government was not contacted before the strike. It's kind of interesting. Nor is President Trump expected to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Friday. So we don't know were the Russians contacted, were they not contacted. So far we know that there were at least, Syrians killed. It seems like there wasn't any Russians that were actually killed in it, in this strike. But again, you've got, Syria, allowed Russia in. Syria, is protected by Russia. You've got Russian troops mixed in with Syrian troops at these different air bases. And if we go bombing all these different air bases, we go setting up a no-fly zone, we go doing all this stuff, I mean, do people think that Russia's just not going to respond? I mean, if we, start killing Russian troops, I mean, is Russia just not going to respond? Do people really think that's going to happen? I mean, that's just not a road we should go down. That's the bottom line there. And now you've got some lone voices out there who are actually standing up against this in Congress. And of course, one of them is Rand Paul. I mean, the guy's been an absolute superstar since the election. He has been before that. He was the guy I supported for president before I eventually got behind Donald Trump on the ticket in the general. When first there was that Obamacare disaster, and he, completely 100% stood up for a full repeal, as well as members of the House Freedom Caucus. And now you've got him standing up against this horrible move by Trump and the Trump administration. So from the Hill, Rand Paul, Trump needs Congress to authorize military action in Syria. Senator Rand Paul, Republican Kentucky, said Thursday night that the president needs congressional authorization for military action in Syria after Trump ordered an airstrike in retaliation for a deadly chemical attack earlier this week. Quote, "We all condemn the atrocities in Syria. The United States was not attacked." We all condemn the atrocities. The United States was not attacked, Paul said in a statement shortly after reports that the U.S. launched more than 50 Tomahawk cruise missiles against an airfield in Syria. Quote, "The president needs congressional authority for authorization for military action as required by the Constitution, and I call on him to come to Congress for a proper debate," Paul said. "Our prior interventions in this region have done nothing to make us safer, and Syria will be no different." Again, look at what happened in Libya. You had the Obama administration doing all these airstrikes without congressional approval. You had Obama saying that he looks for the approval of the United Nations and NATO over our own Congress. Look what happened in Libya. We tried to overthrow Gaddafi. We wound up installing the Muslim Brotherhood, and now Libya is a hellhole, which is a ISIS arms bazaar that all these weapons flow through, and you've got ethnic cleansing going on in Libya now. It used to be a fairly stable country, and now it is just an absolutely failed state. So that's the road we're heading towards right now towards Syria. Only this time you've actually got Russia that will get involved. So a much more dangerous situation. And this is definitely a dangerous road to go down. So now that's we just heard from one of the good people in Congress, one of the few. Now let's hear from some of the low-life scumbags in Congress. From Fox News, Schumer, Pelosi among Democrats to react to Syria strike. Oh, and guess what they had to say. Just guess. Democrats on Thursday responded to reporters that President Trump authorized a cruise missile strike on an airbase in Syria. Their reaction appeared to be mixed. Yeah. Quote, "I support the administration's strike on the airbase that launched the chemical attack. I hope this teaches President Assad not to use chemical weapons again," Senator Bill Nelson, Democrat, Florida, said. Trump's quick action was in response to the chemical attack that left as many as 72 civilians dead, including women and children. Senator Tim Kaine, one of the most vile creatures in the government, and that is saying something, and former vice presidential candidate, issued a statement. "Congress will work with the president, but his failure to seek congressional approval is unlawful." And again, you didn't hear the Congress, you didn't hear the Democrats, saying a peep when Obama was using his overreach and completely ignoring Congress in Libya. And now, it's like, it's so ridiculous. They have to, they're all for this strike on Assad. They're all for this attack on Syria. The only thing that they're going to come out and say is, oh, he didn't get congressional approval. Again, just total hypocrisy from the Democrats. They don't stand on principles. They flip-flop around whatever, is convenient for the day. So just completely disgusting. The statements came as the U.S. launched 59 Tomahawk missiles targeted at an airbase at Sharat. The attack was targeted at the airstrips, hangars, control tower, and ammunition areas in the base, officials said. Any further action will require close scrutiny by Congress, Senator Dick Durbin, a Democrat, Illinois, said. Quote, this week's unspeakable chemical weapons attack is only the latest in a long series of horrors perpetrated by Bashar al-Assad on innocent men, women, and children. Oh yeah, nothing about the horrors of, the ISIS and Al-Qaeda groups that we fund and, have running around just murdering every single Christian and Shiite and whack job Sunni Wahhabist Muslim in sight. Yeah, no word about that. From Democratic House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, of all people. Tonight's strike in Syria appears to be a proportional response to the regime's use of chemical weapons. If the president intends to escalate the U.S. military involvement in Syria, he must come to Congress for authorization. Oh, would you look at that? Isn't that just cute? For use of military force, which is tailored to meet the threat and prevent another open-ended war in the Middle East. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, another despicable creature, Democrat New York, said in a statement, making sure Assad knows that when he commits such despicable atrocities, he will pay a price is the right thing to do. It is incumbent on the Trump administration to come up with a strategy and consult with Congress before implementing it. I salute the professionalism and skill of our armed forces who took action today, Schumer added. So, of course now, it wasn't okay when Trump, tried to have, applause for the widow of a fallen Navy SEAL. That was just terrible, and he was just trying to use the military. But when, he attacks the Assad regime in response to a clear false flag operation, then Chuck Schumer is just all about it. He's just all about the military at that point. So completely despicable. You've got all these Democrats coming out and supporting this, but then also saying, but he needs to get congressional approval when they didn't say a word when Obama was doing it in Libya. So just total hypocrisy. And now let's hear it from old John McCain. From the Hill, McCain, Syria strike a chance for Trump to reboot. Senator John McCain says the public may change their view of President Trump after he ordered a missile strike in Syria. He now has an opportunity to reboot with the American people, at least as far as national security is concerned, McCain said Friday on MSNBC's Morning Joe. I heard you all discuss the polling numbers he has, the Senate Armed Services Committee chairman added. I think we will see the American people probably approve of this. What Americans didn't see, the pictures of those dead babies. And again, that attack was horrible. I condemn the attack. It's an absolute atrocity. But again, just like in 2013, with no evidence, no proof, all these neocons and all these warmongering Democrats are just completely jumping the gun, saying this was the Assad regime when it makes no sense, absolutely no sense that he would do that. And there is clear evidence that it was George Soros-backed groups that were involved in doing this. And I mean, you had media operations that are pro-rebel that were announcing that it was going to happen the day before it happened. Just absolute total insanity. And then you got Trump, just absolutely falling for this. This is a horrible decision, the wrong move. This is going to push us closer to World War III. And, I hope President Trump, I hope cooler heads prevail in this situation. I hope he listens to people like Senator Rand Paul. So, with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, subscribe, leave a comment. If you got anything to say, any kind of constructive criticism or suggestions, or just want to chime in, I would enjoy that if you have something to say. So let me know. And if you want to listen to the audio version, I have that on SoundCloud. Also follow me on Twitter or Facebook, and I'll have all the links in the description. So have a wonderful day. Try to, hopefully we don't all die in thermonuclear destruction, and may the force be with you.